Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. I'm so happy to have all the way from California, we have Nick. Nick, you're from the San Fernando Valley.
Yes.
That's almost like of mythological proportions to people here in the East, because it's like we're always hearing about the valley, right?
Yeah.
Is that the valley that we're talking about?
Yes. Well, there's different versions. It depends on where in California you are. But those who are from close to the LA area usually refer.
So we're talking Southern California, LA. Is that? Have you lived there your whole life, or are you from there?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about your teaching career. Have you been a social studies teacher for a while?
This is my third year now. This is my third year teaching. I did a year student teaching. I was actually able to student teach at where I went to high school.
Is that what inspired you to do it? Did you have a teacher that did it for you?
Yeah, I actually, my mentor teacher was my high school social studies teacher, and he what kind of got me into wanting to teach and excited for that.
What did he do? What was his magic that he did that made you say, this is what I want to do as a career?
I think it was just the opportunity to have those conversations, think critically around history, different topics. Especially growing up in that area, not a lot of people kind of travel outside of that area. So for me, at least during that time, it was a way to kind of see other places, see somewhere else that I didn't think was possible in that moment.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that maybe it is an assumption that you try to pass that on to your students.
Yeah.
That's something that you make as a point to say, this is going to... like I said at the beginning, here in the East, and I was talking to another teacher from California earlier today about this, that whole region is kind of like a magical place. Like, we hear about it all the time in media, movies, TV shows, and things like that, and we just kind of assume that people from that part of the country are really just like, yes, we are the ones who live here, and you all want to be here, but you can't be here because we're all here. But you're saying there's a bit of isolation. You don't have the opportunities necessarily to go out and...
Yeah, it definitely is dependent on, what area you grow up in. I'm from a predominantly Latino community. We're Title I school, so not a lot of students have the financial resources to be able to visit other places. Mm-hmm. Some of them will move around on the bus, get around the area, but not much from there. And something my teachers did as well was encourage students to see other places when you're applying for colleges. Maybe apply somewhere a little further, mm-hmm. even if it's up north in California. Apply out of state, trying to get them to see new places, experience new things.
What was your teacher's name?
So I had two. One of them is actually here. He's at one of the sessions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now he's my colleague, actually.
Oh, great.
I work with him. One, his name is David Govea, and then the other is Chris Fong.
So I'm assuming that neither of those teachers ever just here's a bunch of packets of worksheets, fill them out.
No.
They brought the subject to life.
Yeah.
Do you find that as a teacher, now that you're a teacher yourself, the kind of the state of social studies education that we're in right now, is that something that's easy for you to do, or is it hard to do for any reason?
I've found it pretty easy. I think there's aspects of it that can be kind of difficult, especially like as a young teacher. Sometimes certain topics can be difficult to navigate when you're early in your career, maybe, and you're still not comfortable navigating conversations. But I think in general, it's pretty easy, especially we're in California. It's a state that is very much about talking about different groups, understanding history that may be difficult, getting to some of those harder conversations. So I think that's a great part of being an educator in California.
So it's not an abstract idea, some of the topics that you're doing at all, because it's part of the world that you're in.
Yeah.
I remember when I was my first couple of years teaching, somebody said 7 years is the magic number. For some reason, by the time that you hit your 7th year as a teacher, you've seen it all or enough of every situation that you kind of know how to do it. But it can be kind of an uncomfortable thing first couple of years, because different scenarios. Oh, maybe I didn't follow that IEP exactly, or did I say something or show something in my class that got somebody upset, or those are the kinds of things, and I don't mean to worry right now, but like those are the things that you're like, oh, I've never encountered that before. So, but by the time you hit 7, it's like, okay, I know my trajectory. So from my collection of popular culture stuff, you chose, and I realized that I've been mispronouncing this for years. What did you choose?
The Mask of Zorro.
So I've been saying it. I think the anglicized Zorro, right? But it's Zorro, right? So that would be because, and I'm going to choose the question of. Where'd it go? I love it. I'll delete this dead air out when I'm done. I don't know, my card seems to have gone missing, but it's the question of where was it made and what locations are associated with it. So what do you know about this character of Zorro and the Zorro movies?
From what I'm familiar with, he was one of the first kind of Latino kind of figures in movies. That was, I don't think in this movie, but I know in another version of the Zorro movies that they made, Antonio Banderas was.
Yep,
the
I
one
remember him being in one.
I don't remember which version that was, but I remember he kind of became very popular.
And he has sort of a, so is he a Mexican folklore character? Is he from?
Yes.
Okay, so he seems to have a lot of shared qualities with Robin Hood.
Yes.
Batman. I think he predates Batman. And other kind of like, maybe even Lone Ranger, this masked figure. He's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't wear white, does he?
Yeah.
So he wears black. Kind of a Lothario, he's a heartthrob, ladies' man. That as you get Antonio Banderas to play him, you don't have somebody else. What does that tell you? You mentioned about being the first. I'm assuming places like Southern California.
Yeah.
This character would have had much more of an audience that understood him right away.
Yeah, definitely. I know my parents saw that version, the Antonio Banderas version of The Mask of Zorro, and they didn't talk about it often, but they would talk about it enough to where you can tell it had some kind of an impact on them, like seeing the movie. And sometimes some people might even just have watched the movie because it is a character that maybe they connected with because they saw themselves or they related to the character or different reasons.
Which I think it provides some version of agency on the one hand, right? It gives people that are not represented in media the chance to be, because once a movie gets out there,
wide release. Everybody's watching it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it could move, not necessarily that specific movie, but movies like that could also give just a narrow look at whatever they're representing. So if it's something that's very specific to a location, like in this case Mexico, Mexican culture, Mexican society, Mexican social structures and things like that, it could potentially lead to all the way up here in New England.
Yeah.
Somebody goes sees that movie and they're just like, that's all I understand of it. You know, it's like between that and, you know, the Mexican restaurant that I go to, it's like you get just like these little tiny bits and pieces of it. So do you think it has a much more powerful impact in certain parts of the world or the country?
Yeah, I think definitely in areas where there is bigger populations of Mexicans and Mexican Americans, places like maybe California, Arizona, Texas, kind of that West Coast area where there is those bigger populations, it could have, you know, that impact. Even just general knowledge, majority of Mexican or Mexican Americans do know the character of Zorro. They may not know specific details, but they at least know who Zorro is.
Yeah, swashbuckling. He has the sword. He wears a cape. He seems mysterious, cool. You know, and I couldn't imagine that. Well, here's a good litmus test, or a test of impact. Halloween time just passed us. I don't think I've ever seen somebody dressed as Zorro, but perhaps in Southern California, have you seen costumes like that before?
Some, not like, it's not a popular